Hello, everybody, and welcome to Know Your Shit podcast, where our knowledge and pride in what we do drives us to be excellent. My name is Josh Cadillac, and once again, you're stuck with me in the driver's seat for today's show, but that's okay. It's going to be a great show because we have a great guest for you. We have Monica Neubauer here, good friend of mine. Monica, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, Josh. I always love having a good conversation with you. And when we can share that with your listeners, awesome.
Yeah, win for everybody. So, why don't you tell everybody what it is that you do?
What do I do? Well, I do as many things as I can. I'm a starter. Let's just say that. I love starting new things. And it turned out when I got into real estate 22 years ago, I committed for 3 years, but then I kept finding new things to do in the industry. So it's been a constant source of growth and interest to me, starting out as a real estate professional, then doing in office training, moving to bigger trainings, ultimately to be a national speaker, international speaker, which has its own challenge, then moving across the pond. And
Mm.
then also, I've done a podcast for NAR. I do one with my husband. I've written a couple of books. So, I've had a great time doing new things, even while I'm staying in the same kind of general field.
And it's a great tent for that because I mean there are so many sides and facets to real estate. There's always something kind of new to check out and try. What do you like best about what you do, Monica?
Oh gosh, what do I like best? Best. I like being with people in an atmosphere of, especially being a speaker and being a veteran. I feel like I have something to offer people, but I also know whenever I'm with my students, the learners, or real estate clients or peers, I'm always learning something else. So I love the fact that I'm with people who bring whatever they know into the conversation. And whereas I'm glad I have something I can give, I also know I can always learn something.
Sure, always something new, always something more. There's
Yeah.
so much good out there. Where do you think all the success came from for you?
Well, for me, it has come from honestly, I'm kind of a driven person.
Hmm.
And you don't know what that's like at all, do you?
No clue. Tell me
So
about this drivenness thing. How does this go?
that old workaholic thing,
A little bit.
Well, but I found that my personality was genuinely suited to business, to networking, to connecting with people. I had been a stay-at-home mom, and had kind of a different life even before that. So when I got into business, I just started thriving, and I knew that if I was going to invest my time and take away from my family and away from what I had been doing, it was like time for me to focus in. And my husband and I always, it's our opinion that when each of us takes on something new, and it took us a while to learn this, we wanted to be invested in things that gave us life, that gave
Hmm.
us a second reason to be doing it, because I had been invested in enough things that made me just feel down and not have life. And
Sure.
being around me when I'm high energy and I'm happy in a place, I bring some good stuff, but when I'm like, bleh, it's
Yeah.
it's not good. And so we invested a lot of time in what industry can Monica grow and Monica be successful. So we chose carefully. So I would say that was the first thing I would attribute it to, is just we chose carefully something that we knew that I would like and I could thrive in.
It's such a good thing to do by virtue of the fact that so many people kind of find themselves doing something rather than choosing the thing that they do based kind of on this assessment of themselves. And I really like what you said there, that you kind of have this assessment of yourself that you've taken, and based upon what I know of me, this is
Yeah.
the place that I should put me to get the best out of me. I think that there's a lot of insight in that.
But I've also, being an instructor, we know that there are some personality types that naturally succeed in real estate or in a sales position. But you and I have both seen people succeed in this field with all personality types.
Sure.
And so that would be the next question, is if somebody's in a situation where they would say, well, I don't feel like I'm in the right position. I might say, well, what can you add to your job, or what can you do to make a shift in the way you do it and make the job suit you more?
I- you know,
What do you think
the
about that?
the only twist I'd put on that is who can you add? Because that really was the thing for me. Like, I have never been high I am not the people person.
Not the big people person. Nope.
Not the big people person. And so my former broker was like DI all day, every day. But like if you asked him where he left that contract, um, it was
He
around
had
here
no idea.
someplace. Right? But I mean, you sent him into I took him on a cruise, Monica. He came off with 50 business cards. I come off a cruise. I've met no one. Right? Like being
Right.
on the cruise and not meeting anyone is why I'm on the cruise. And he's the other way, right? But the two of us together was just dynamite because he gives it to me. The next thing he sees is a commission check coming out of the office. It's done, right? And so I think making peace. This was a big one for me. Making peace with that I didn't have to be good at everything that everybody else was good in. I had to really take and try to kind of what you were saying, figure out what I'm great at and lean hard into that and then bolster up either with systems or other people that to let them play to their strengths. I made it for him so
Yep.
he didn't have to worry about all those annoying details. And he made it for me. I didn't have to worry about all those annoying people.
Well, and okay, let's go on with this a little bit. You're kind of opening the door to one of my favorite topics is I'm have more of the, we're talking about on the disc profile. I have more of that driven and people skills together.
Yeah,
And
yep.
the details have never been awesome for me, but I am successful.
Sure.
Now, let's go into the definition of success, and without getting into some of the details of what you and I have talked about before, what is somebody's definition of success? And for some people, that's going to be they want to get honor, they want to have a place of power, they want to own a business. It's some measure of image or whatever. As long as I'm paying my bills and I'm working, I'm successful. Some of us want to have a certain amount of prestige. Like getting that podcast with the National Association of Realtors was for me, that was a huge thing for me. But honestly, I kind of was in the right place at the right time.
Sure.
That hard work towards luck kind of a
Yeah.
kind of a
You
thing.
work really, really hard and luck seems to find you kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. But you've been in all those places. So people's definition of success can be different. And that's how, when I talk about goals, even with agents, I say you can set a goal, and you should probably do all three of these. You can set a goal for how much money you make. You can also set a goal for how many transactions you're going to do. And you can set a goal for how many connections you're going to intentionally make with people and with your past clients. And so
Sure.
you may meet two of those and not meet the third one. So that's one thing, is that all measures are different. What you
Sure.
measure and what I measure are different. And that's kind of the point of what I'm saying, is we all get to define our own definitions of success for ourselves.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important thing. And the only caveat that I've really been thinking a lot about on that has been to make sure that lines up with what you think a good, well-lived life should be. Like
Mm,
the way I do business should be reflective of the life that I want to live. I don't think it's possible to do. I want to be full of integrity, but I run this really shady business over here in
right.
order to take and like I want to make sure those two things because business takes so much of life up. I want to make sure that I'm being consistent. And I think a lot of people struggle because they've never defined what they want the life to look like so they can
Mm,
build the business, especially in the kind of business that we're in as real estate or speakers, right?
yep.
We don't have a boss, really. I mean, we work as a vendor for people, but we don't
Right.
have a boss.
We have
So,
clients, but we don't have a boss. Right.
right. And even when we have a broker, the broker's not our boss. It's somebody that we work under, not for.
Right.
And so, you know, what our business is going to look like. We have a lot of latitude with that. And if you haven't clearly defined what you're shooting for in life, it's very easy for your business to be working at cross purposes. And I see that a lot, actually,
Yeah.
when I analyze why agents are unfulfilled in what they do. They're kind of working at cross purposes with what they actually think matters. And it's easy to do. But I want
No,
to go to, I'm sorry.
oh, one more thing. I want to wrap that
Sure.
up real.
Yeah.
I want people to be successful in life, and business is only one part of it, which
Yeah.
is what you just said. Yep.
Absolutely. No,
Yep.
totally. I think you got to get the one right to really be able to enjoy the whole thing.
Yep.
And just so that we're throwing the letters out there, the agent that I usually refer all of my buyers to, SC as SC could be all day long. super steady, whatever, but I know I give it to them because
They're going to handle it and do
I
a great
can't work.
job.
You know, you speak on the road all the time. You can't show buyers house property. So,
Right.
but I know I can depend on him. He's good. He's great. He's amazing. Good guy. Right. And so, yeah, there's not a letter combination I found that cannot be super successful in this business. It's just playing to strengths.
Yep.
Um, I want to ask you this kind of a little bit of a Debbie Downer question, sort of.
Oh,
How do you manage yourself, like when there's disappointments and unmet expectations? We kind of
well,
talk about how important it is, how good you are when you're up. How do you manage when you kind of get that punch in the face that life tends to throw you out of nowhere?
well, one, I have spent 36 years married to the same person, and we have learned how to communicate well together. And having him as a sounding board is fantastic. So, and he has his own journey, which, he has, chronic pain and back pain and things like that. So he's always having to look for the beauty, look for the good. That's his journey, and he takes it very seriously. So, one, I have perspective and he helps me, but he doesn't say to me, "Oh, you should have perspective. I'm in so much pain. You're such, you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
so many." He never does that. He knows that my journey is my journey. So,
right,
one would be have a friend or a spouse or a business partner, someone that you can talk to that helps you get back to perspective. Now, with that, after that kind of thing, because sometimes we just need to talk things out.
sure.
The other thing that, and Mark and I often do this together, I can do it by myself now. I'm a big girl now. I've
All grown up.
and all grown up. And that's what we call is unpacking things. So when something happens and my expectations weren't met or I was disappointed, then I say, I'm looking at a few things. I'm saying, one, what could I have done differently?
Of course,
Uh, were my expectations realistic? Could I have asked better questions? So I'm very much looking at how could I have changed my attitude or my perception to have created it better. And while I'm doing that, though, I'm also honest without criticism. I mean, I try to look at a situation honestly and say, they could have asked better questions. They could have set better expectations. So I'm going to take my responsibility in it,
sure.
but I'm also going to objectively look at the situation. Again, not to be mean or blame or anything
Right,
like
right,
that,
right, right.
but to just say, I think they could have done a few things better as well.
I very much like that because there is kind of this fine line that you have to walk, and especially, I think the more productive you are as a person, and the more of your value kind of comes from how much you do, um, of being too harsh a critic at times, and I think it's that fine line of getting on your case enough to get out of you what you need to, but not so much that it's more than is what's needed. There's no reason to make yourself more miserable about something
Right.
that didn't go well than is absolutely like I want myself miserable enough that I won't do it again,
Yeah.
but not more miserable than that. You know, like
Yep.
everything else after this is just punitive, and I really don't need additional punishment on top of what life dishes out on its own.
Right. Let me
Um,
take the lesson from it because that's my big thing. And as
absolutely.
speakers, we always want to take a story. So, can I take a story from it and can I take a lesson from it and how can I move forward? So, yep.
Post game this sucker. How do we do the post game?
Post game.
Yep.
That's a great analogy. Do the post game analysis.
That's exactly what it is. We already lost this one? How do we not lose the next one? Right.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. So, what do you think, if you wanted to isolate, what do you think makes you passionate about what you do?
Hmm.
It's obvious
Passion.
that you are. Where
Well,
does it come from?
well, my whole life, people would call me passionate.
Hmm.
And I think that word could apply to me just in general as a person. And generally, that is an expression of how big I express myself.
Yeah.
So
Intensity of
let's just
expression.
take a look at the word passionate kind of from a neutral perspective is I'm passionately happy. And, in my younger years when I was figuring out how to manage all the stresses of life, I was more passionate angry than
Yeah.
I gratefully am
Passionate pissed.
now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so passion is, I think, just a really large expression of things. And
Sure.
so when we tell people, what are you passionate about? I really prefer the phrase that I used earlier is when you're doing something, what are you doing that gives you life, that makes you content, that you feel at peace in it? There's a sense of joy because passion, not every personality feels like they express what we might think of as passion. That's like I say, people could say, I'm passionate about everything. If I was doing something else, you might say, I was passionate about that. And honestly, if you sat down and talked with me about religion and politics and money and all those non topics, I'm actually quite passionate about those. I just keep my mouth shut. So,
Yeah, yeah. No, I hear you.
yeah, unless I'm invited,
Yeah,
I have another podcast for that. So, it's choosing where to express
sure.
the feelings that I have so that I can hopefully bring help and good things into the world.
Sure. I think I meant it more from the standpoint of like what gives you the true joy in what you do, because obviously that seems to come through in the fact that a lot of people do work that they don't enjoy. You
Mm.
obviously enjoy what you do. So whereas and maybe that's a better way of phrasing the question. What is it you think about this that gives you the life? What do you think the takeaway is from what you do?
Well, part of it goes back to knowing who I am and what I do well. So
Sure,
even when I'm tired or frustrated or whatever, because I have, and this is, we could talk about this afterwards, but with the name of your podcast, Know Your Shit podcast, because I have taken the time to learn what I do and continue to work on what I do, I feel comfortable with what I do.
sure,
And so therefore, I bring what I have with confidence and knowledge, and that gives me great joy because I feel like I am competent in my field,
right.
and therefore the people who have come to be with me, whether they're a client in real estate or an audience, I you know I and I work with this a lot. Genuinely, what am I bringing the audience that they need? Because
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes I can get in my head and say, what do I want to say, what do I want to bring,
sure.
rather than how do I make sure they get what they need.
I think, and maybe I'm hearing this wrong, but tell me if I'm kind of
Yeah.
getting my head around this. You take great pride in the quality of the product that you bring, right? That you know the product is good, and you take pride in the fact that you know that what you're bringing is a good, helpful product to people, that it's going to do good.
Correct. And if they're going to hire that product because they're going to hire a speaker or they're going to hire a realtor, if they're going to hire for that product, I want to be the person that brings the excellent product.
That's it.
And
How to
so,
be the
yes,
goods.
so then I can give joy to the person who hired me and provide something of value for the people who gave me their time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. ROI, the return on investment of the people that
Yep.
that take their time. When you think about time as a return on investment, man, all of a
Yep.
sudden there's a whole lot more accountability that comes with that.
I know. And their time is really even more accountable than their money because there's so many other ways they could be doing things. So,
And there's so many ways
yeah.
to
And
make
I
money.
consider that a
There's not
privilege.
ways to make more time. You only got so
Yeah.
much of that. It
Yep.
is a thing.
That's a
So
good way to put that. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
totally just made that up right now. So it's in the ethosphere. Nobody's copyrighted it yet. Um, what is a tool that you would suggest as you've obviously crafted a life and you figured out how to stay productive and all? Is there a tool that you could think of that you use that you would suggest to our listeners that was helpful for you?
The tool that is most helpful for me is an open mindedness.
Hmm.
And I don't want to hang on that phrase because it's also one of those phrases that kind of gets people
It's
to
so
think it
used, it's
means
meaningless, kind of almost.
exactly. It's overused, so it's meaningless. But it's a sense of, and this has something I've been taught and learned and leaned into in my life because I haven't always been this way. But I've made enough mistakes that I don't want to make again, that I go into more situations with an openness to learn. And I really feel like that it not only gives me joy because then I'm anticipating that wherever I go, I can get some benefit for myself. But when I am open to learn from my clients, from my learners, that means there's kind of always a give and take. And that helps me stay humble and remember that I don't have all the answers. I'm not every person. I don't have all their experiences. So I can always learn something. And that gives me great joy to have that sense of what am I going to get today from whoever I talk to?
Yeah, a fresh look at the almost coming out of the day with anticipation.
Yeah,
That's good stuff.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, kind of a shift of gears, a kind of an open-ended question as well. What do you see as the opportunity in the market today?
In generally in the real estate
Real
market
estate,
or
in speaking, like what do you see? What like when you think the opportunity that has you most excited in whatever it is that you're touching? What's got you looking forward to the opportunity?
oh, one of the opportunities that I love, and this actually isn't so much of a business thing, but it could be, and that's kind of where the opportunity is. I love to travel, and because of the speaking part of our job, I go to all these little small towns.
Mm,
And I love going to these small towns, and I've seen so much regeneration and growth all across the country in these small cities. So there's opportunity for everybody to go somewhere and start over. Now, it's not always easy, and I know it's hard for people to leave their family, and I don't actually even condone that because community is so important. But for people who want to go and maybe start something new or buy somewhere that's less expensive than where they've been, the whole travel thing for me, when I look at that, I say, wow, I love traveling. There's opportunity there. I could write a blog. I can make videos. Now, some of those content creation things, some will make money and some will not. You have
yeah,
to always think about if you need business or you want business, you have to think about how can this be business, and you have to take a work attitude. But transferring that to a bigger thing is I think there are so many areas that we have interest in that we can turn into some income. I mean, I do look at the people on Etsy and I think, wow, do they actually make money?
does that work?
Um, I mean, sometimes you do things that you enjoy that are the dollar widgets are very small, and I
Mhm.
wonder, are they making what they need? And then I say, well, I hope they're making enough for their joy level.
Yeah,
Um, so there's not business opportunity everywhere, but you can make a lot of things turn into something that can be income producing. And I love how the young people are discovering that and creating the life they want.
yeah. No, I mean that finding that freedom and not being tethered to the necessarily the ideas that have permeated culture before is a good thing. I mean, it's one of the interesting things with the young. They tend to throw the good and the bad out, and uh, and then kind of learn through time what was good and why we did it that way, and maybe they learn some new stuff along the way too. It is a very interesting thing to see it in progress. But what do
But
you
that wasn't
think?
what you expected me to say, was it? That was kind of
No,
a
no. I always, it has been one of my favorite questions to ask because most of the time people automatically jump to something. And I've always been the kind of thing like that's going to kind of question where they're going to like ask you to define like what do you mean, what market? And I'm surprised how often people don't ask. There's like, oh, the thing that I'm excited about is, and they go on to something. And so,
yeah.
yeah, no, I'm always happy to hear the different places people's minds are and where they're seeing the opportunities because that's a very big part of the creative process is like kind of how we look at the world and say right there
Yeah,
somebody
it
needs to
is.
do something right there. That's what makes Shark Tank go right there,
No,
right?
I know. And I tell you, one of the things with the opportunity is living in the US and being a citizen here. Yeah, we've got a lot of really great things going on. But my daughter lived overseas. And so I've been to China and Japan, and she went to Bali again, as well. And so I'm seeing how other countries are doing things differently. And it just reminds me that we don't have the corner on every cool thing, not by a long shot. So
Sure.
if people want opportunity, go travel around the world for, a few months, and you'll see lots of opportunity that you could come back and do something with.
Well, you know what? The thing that always amazes me is how successful the immigrants that come to this country are. And I mean, like when I talk to these, they still see the streets are paved with gold here, and they go out there and they find it.
Yeah.
The folks that I see complaining are the ones that are from here that don't realize, you're right. Like other places, they have other stuff that's cool and great and all this kind of, but it still seems like everybody wants to come here for where these opportunities are, this abundance of opportunities. And so I think a lot of times it is the attitude you approach it with.
Yeah.
I know for you, you're always looking for that next thing. You're
Yeah.
always, you like the challenge, right? And so you're looking for that. One of the things I've always loved, I don't know where I heard it, but if you look for what's good, you'll find it. And if you look for
Mm,
what's bad, you'll find that too.
yeah.
And so it's what you're looking for that you tend to find. And I think that our most harsh critics need to just take a step back, kind of, and really appreciate what they have first. This is what's never going to make me successful at politics. But one of the phrases that I love, when I fully got my head around it, was how the mafia used to refer to the mafia. The mafia is not a name that the Italians had for the
Gave
mafia.
for themselves, right?
Yeah, the name was La Cosa Nostra, which was this thing of ours, right?
Mm,
It was our thing. And when it comes to how we handle ourselves, I think as long as we stick with that primary idea that this country of ours is our thing, and how do we make our thing better, I think we're okay. It's when we
mhm.
start saying, "Oh, that thing," that's when I start to get concerned, because when you're on the outside looking in, and that's a little bit that morally repugnant stance, I start to get a little bit concerned, because that's when we forget the things that we can agree about.
Yeah.
I think that's when we have trouble. But
Uh,
I don't want to go down that rabbit trail.
no,
That's
we're
its
not
own
going
rabbit
down
trail.
there.
There's
Yep.
rabbits, there's foxes, there's all kinds of things down there.
All
You know.
kinds of things. Snakes.
So yeah, snakes in particular. So what do you think is the most important thing you've learned in the process of doing what you've done?
Oh, I can tell you that.
There
And
we go.
I don't know thing, but my favorite skill in all of this was tact. There's two
Okay.
things I've learned in real estate that have helped me. One was I learned tact because I am a direct person and I
Mhm.
was so direct. And again, I'd say things and I'd see people's eyes gloss over. They weren't understanding what I was saying. I needed to use some different words or it was too direct, whatever it was. So I learned to tact. What's the quote I have from one of my messages? It's not my quote, but tact is a form of diplomacy where we learn to say things so that others do what we want them to do, basically. But
To get the result we want. Yeah, yeah.
but actually, the second lesson that goes along with that is I, being such a decisive person, oh, you need a decision? Call Monica. She'll make a decision, good or bad. I don't know. I'll just make a decision.
Yeah, yeah. I'll
Well,
pull the trigger. Yeah.
right. So I have learned that I need to have tact, and I've learned that it's not my place to make decisions for other people. So
Mm,
that line has become clearer for me when I can make a decision and when I need to say it's not mine, which is certainly notably in real estate is I need to lead buyers and sellers to decision, but it's always their decision. And
yep.
I have to be okay with that. And that's where tact and diplomacy come in. So I would
Sure.
say those are two life skills that I got through all of this that have served me well in my whole, in everything that I do.
I've heard of this tact stuff. I must
You
research it
have, huh?
more. I
Yeah.
obviously need to get some. It sounds really great. Um, all right, so this next little piece here, like a little bit more of a lightning round. So just kind of your first takes on
Okay.
these things. This is just to get people to know you. I know you pretty well, but I want other people to know a little more of the Monica that I know and love. So, what would you say you're most proud of in business that you've accomplished?
I am proud that when I create something new and put it out in the world, and then I can watch it grow, I marvel that I'm creating a real estate business. I'm creating a speaking business. I'm writing books that people may or may not buy, but I am very proud that I can set a goal and work to it and get there.
Love it. Most proud of similar question. Most proud of in life that you've accomplished.
Most proud in life is what I was talking about with tact. And even with my marriage, my husband and I are very different. And we have repeatedly chosen to do the work to learn how to respect each other and communicate. And I'm very proud of that.
That is a great thing to be proud of. What one piece of advice would you give our listeners?
Keep learning,
Ah, yeah,
keep
absolutely.
reading, keep listening to podcasts, watch different perspectives of things, read different news sources. Always keep learning.
Love it. Now I'm going to nail you down a little bit. What one book would you recommend?
Oh, one book. Oh, I did just think of one that I really, really love, and that's The Seven Habits of Highly Successful People, Stephen Covey. If
Yep.
if you can read that book and take those habits to heart, that's going to create the open doors you need for the rest of it.
Yeah, yeah. Favorite movie of all time?
Oh, I got you on that one. The
Okay.
A&E version of Pride and Prejudice.
Okay. I
And here's part of the reason why, and this is, I challenge people to think about this. I like it because Miss Elizabeth Bennet is kind of like me.
okay.
And
So
so I
you,
see
you found
myself in
someone to
her.
relate to.
And I can relate to her. I can relate to the storyline. And I love Jane Austen. But only the A&E 6 hour version. The 2 hour version, no, it misses too many amazing language
No
points.
Diet Coke for you. You want the
No.
full sugar rush. I
Yep,
got
I
you.
do.
All right.
Hmm.
All right. Famous person in history you'd want to sit down with and meet if you could.
I guess I would love to meet Jesus. I would love to sit and even just observe and watch and be
Sure.
in his
Uh,
presence instead of all the interpretations of him.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, nobody, that is not a unique perspective on here. I'm surprised a lot of times at the people that answer the question that way. And I say it pretty much every time. Nobody moved the needle more than he did in how we treat each other and how we think about things. So it's, um,
He was and is truly catalytic in the world.
absolutely changed how we treat each other, changed how we treat the opposite sex. It really moved the needle in a lot of ways. What similar question, but again, a little bit more personal. What person from your past would you want to sit down with and have lunch with today if you could?
Oh, I'd love to be with my mom.
Mm,
She passed away um, about, gosh, it's been 14 years now. And I wrote one or two blog posts about this, and I've taken a journey in the last year. I am now at the age that my mom was actually when she started getting sick, but I'm at the age she was when I started paying more attention to her as an adult.
mm.
Does that make sense? So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had
yeah.
grown up. My kids were now 4, 5, 6 years old, so I actually had some mental space to look around me, and my mom was unfortunately starting to get sick then, so our relationship changed. But I'd love to sit down with her now that I'm the age that she was, and talk more about her journey.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, there's that the shared not only DNA but the lived experience with this person, and then their perspective. It would be. I know for me, I've said it on here many times. My father would be the answer for me, and just what his assessment would be, and what I could pick up from him. All right, now that you're here, here's what you got to do. The famous scene in The Godfather where Marlon Brando's telling his son who's taken over, all right, make sure I'd love to have that conversation.
Yeah.
um what one piece of advice would you go back and give a younger version of you?
I have just written a keynote about that actually.
Well,
And
there we go. It seems poignant question.
it's the keynote right now. My current working title is the ARC of authenticity. And I would say to young people that authenticity is a journey. You want to do your best to figure out who you are when you're young, but you're not going to ever land on some definitive part of who you are. We're always changing, we're growing, and that's an important part of our authenticity is how we get along with others and show up in the world and keep growing. So that's my one thing. Keep your authenticity adaptable.
All right. I think I know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway. Who would you want to be in a foxhole, stuck in a foxhole with taking fire?
Oh, well, of course, my husband. I mean,
That's the safe answer, Monica.
I
I
know
got
that's
worried. There was a pause there that got me a little. You got to go with the safe bet on this one.
well, the thing about my husband too, when you think about being in a foxhole, and even though my husband has this chronic pain journey, he is amazing in a pinch, and he's very handy, he's very skilled. And so I was kind of looking for the trick part of that, but I was like, no, even with his back pain, I mean, if he's got 1 ounce of life left in him, he's going to be valuable and getting things done till the end. I mean, he may keel over afterwards because he just went too far, but he'll be amazing in any needy situation with me for sure.
Well, it's awesome that you just did the entire reassessment. You know what? You're still number one on the list. Just
Yep.
so you know, I just checked. You still make the top of the list. All right,
Still my buddy.
a couple little quick, fast ones. What do you do to unwind, Monica?
What do I do to unwind? I do like to have a glass of wine, and but I've noticed that the wine is the trigger for the rest.
Mm,
It's not that I need alcohol, it's that that's the drink that says you can rest. So I'm
yeah.
adding other drinks to help me think rest. So if I don't want to have wine, I can have that mental trigger.
So like a
Um,
Pavlovian response almost.
exactly. There's a Pavlovian response to that. And the other thing is when I travel, I often go a little bit early and I drive through beautiful places wherever I'm going. And that's
Mm.
always a good readjustment and down for me as well.
I have to try that at some point. Usually I'm getting there just in time and right back out again.
Nope.
I need to savor the wine a little here, I suppose. Um, what's next for you, Monica?
What's next for me? I'm actually thinking of some things because I'm enjoying everything I'm doing, but I'm also always kind of looking around and noticing changes. And of course, in the real estate industry, we've had so much change.
Mm,
So, what I'm developing kind of for 2025, nothing is firmed up yet, but what I'm looking at is expanding some of my topics into potentially some other markets. This authenticity speech is kind of a key to that. And, specifically bringing some more life lessons, not just business lessons, into the world. I want to develop some kind of a mentorship mastermind kind of a program. So that's going to be my goal for the rest of
mm,
this year. Kind of think about what do I want to provide, and see if I can ask some people what would they want. If
mm.
you were going to hang out more with me, what do you want? So
Yeah,
that'll be a good topic for me to take as I travel over the next couple months to think, you know, where am I going? But I also feel at peace with a lot of things. So I don't feel the need to create something. I don't want to make any more huge leaps. I want to
sure.
create places where I'm content. They're in my field. They're with people I know. So I'm kind of done taking some of those big leaps, but that doesn't mean I don't want to do new things because I love new things and they give me
I will tell you this, that network of people, that mastermind group has been such a. I was fearful when I started mine that it was going to be a huge time, not even a time drain, that I was going to struggle to give them something that I could feel good about.
life. Right.
It has been such the opposite experience, and even the creativity that has come from it, from the incoming questions and how it's made me think about things, has been a reward for me in the
Yeah.
process. So that's been
Good.
great. And
That
so
encourages me.
yeah,
Yep. Awesome.
I wanted to take and give you some encouragement on that front, to say that it pours back in
Which is,
amazingly well.
what I said, that's what I love. So I want to have a community, not just, again, it's not, I don't want to create a sound box. I want to have
Oh yeah,
relationships.
and I mean, what's great also is too when it's people from all over the country. You see, oh wow, it's good to see you, and it's good to see you, and it's good to see you, because these were great people, to hang out
Yeah.
with. So, last question I have for you, Monica, is where can people find you if they want more Monica?
If they want more Monica, they can find all of access to everything about me at monicaneubauer.com. And you can find my books there. You can find my podcast with NAR. The podcast I do with my husband is called An Open Conversation with Mark and Monica. It's not the most reliable podcast in the network, but when we do it, and I think I'm going to invite my daughter to do some conversation. She's 29 and she will bring some great energy as well. So, we do all kinds of things, but it all starts, you can find it at monicaneubauer.com.
That's awesome, Monica. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for coming on and hanging out with us, and just having a great chat on what is a Saturday morning. We're
Saturday morning.
instead
Yep,
of goofing
always a
off, this is
pleasure.
what we're doing.
Because we're workaholics.
This
I am
is
going
what
to
we
leave here
do.
though and go have lunch with my dad, and it's going to be awesome. So Saturdays are always a good balance of things I want to do, whether it's work or something else. So that's it.
Awesome. And I want to thank all of our listeners for hanging out and spending their time with us. Guys, thanks for your time. I'm going to remind you, as I always love to do, there is never a good excuse not to know your shit. Till next time.